All right, so starting off with Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. I'm reading the New Living Translation first. And it says, "Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife, Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, 'With Yahuwah's help, I have produced a man.' Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to Yahuwah. And Abel also brought a gift, the best portion of the firstborn lamb from his flock. Yahuwah accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. 'Why are you so angry?' Yahuwah asked Cain. 'Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master.'" Verse 8. One day Cain suggested to his brother, "Let's go out into the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Cain and Abel is now in the picture, okay? As they grew up, obviously they're older now. This story always baffled me. I always wondered, why did he, why he accepted Abel's and didn't accept Cain's? Was it because it was a lamb offering, or what? And Cain's was was the fruit of his labor from the ground. I always really wondered what it was, until I started really digging. I didn't get to, I didn't know that until I started digging. So this is a good message here. So King James Version, verse 1, it says, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, 'I have gotten a man from Yahuwah.'" All right. Before we move to the second verse, again, we see that concordance, okay? Here, when he knew, it says, "And Adam knew," and then that second concordance, Strong's concordance, is H853. All right, knowing meaning is his wife. That's something that he wanted us to do to multiply. Okay, multiply and be fruitful. This is the multiply part. So that is something that is a pillar for us to do. Okay, so again, that is the word off. Okay, a sign, a signal, a beacon saying that Yahuwah placed this here. This is something that we ought to do. We should do, and is something that changed the course of history in a sense. It's his commandment for us to do. All right, verse 2, and it says, "And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground." All right, and the first thing we look at when it says "and Abel," all right, we're going to look at the reference that they gave us. All right, I'm going to read some of these, but I picked the Genesis 46, 32 through 34. Let me go back real quick before I read it. And it says, "And Abel." So it says his brother, and Abel was a keeper. Okay, and Abel. They're talking about Abel and his disposition and who he is. Okay, or something about him. Okay, and it says Genesis 46, 32 through 34. "These men are shepherds, and they have risen livestock. They have brought with them their flock and herds and everything they own." And then he said, When Pharaoh calls for you and asks you about your occupation, you must tell him, we, your servants, have raised livestock all our lives, as our ancestors have always done. When you tell him this, he will let you live here in the region of Goshen, for the Egyptians despise shepherds. Okay. The reason why I wanted to read this one is because, and it says, and Abel. Okay. It's expounding on the disposition of he is a keeper of sheep. Okay. And later on we're gonna kind of see, well, it says in here, it says and their ancestors, okay, all their ancestors kept sheep. Okay. It was a cultural thing, if you think about it, thinking about who all kept sheep in the Bible that we know, right? That lineage. And then further down, who did he pick for a king? A shepherd. Okay. So this is expounding on the disposition of the type of people that keep sheep. Okay. That are shepherds. Okay. Think about the qualities. Okay. All right. I'm going to read one more here. Exodus 3:1. And it says, one day Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far to the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of YAHUAH or Elohim. Okay, so it's just it's just showing who all were shepherds. Okay, one more. Psalms 78, 70 through 72. Okay, and he chose his servant David, calling him from the sheep pens. He took David from tending the ewes and lambs and made him the shepherd of Jacob's descendants, Yahuwah or Elohim, own people, Israel. And he carried them with a true heart and led them with skillful hands. Okay, so they're really going in and saying, okay, well, all these people who were great and who Yahuwah called on, okay, were shepherds. Okay. And then also it goes a little bit deeper, okay, in that verse, looking at the King James Version, and it says, and Abel, once again, was a keeper of sheep. Okay, so let's see what they mean by keeper of sheep here. Okay, we're going to go to John 8:44. John 8:44. And this is Yahusha here. So this is talking about, I'm going to read a few of these. This is talking about Abel, but also talking about people in general. Okay, John 8:44, and it says, and I'm going to give you context. Yahusha is speaking to the Pharisees. Okay, right here. Okay, Pharisees are the religious men of Judah. Okay, the religious leaders. Okay, and he says, for you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love and do the devil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He always hated the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Okay, so this is describing children of their father. Okay, so we're going to go into another one. 1 John 3:10. So now we can tell who are children of Elohim and who are children of the devil. Anyone who does not live righteously, does not love other believers, does not belong to Elohim. Okay, so again, he's describing, all right, the children of Elohim and also the children of the devil. Okay, so a keeper of sheep He's describing a keeper of sheep was Abel, and now he's describing, saying he is a son of Yah. Okay, so he's being really specific. Okay, in this lineage, okay, they keep sheep, and keepers of sheep were the children of Yah. Okay, so he's being real specific, okay, about the characteristics and about who Abel is. All right.
About Cain, is he also saying Cain is
we ain't get there yet, but we're gonna find that out.
kind of saying it?
And we're gonna go down. I'm gonna check these two real quick. It gave me a reference for tiller as well for this verse, so I'm just gonna read this. Genesis. Okay, and it says, "But Cain was a tiller of the ground." All right. And it gave a reference for this. All right. Genesis 3:23. And it says, "So YAHUAH Elohim banished them from the Garden of Eden, and he sent Adam out to cultivate the ground from which he had been made." All right. For which he had been made. All right. I'm going to ask after I read the second one what y'all think this means. Okay. Genesis 9:20. It says, "After the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground, and he planted a vineyard." It was talking about Cain, and it says in King James Version, it says, "But Cain was a tiller of the ground." All right. It was a tiller of the ground, and that first reference they gave us, and it says, "So YAHUAH Elohim banished them from the Garden of Eden, and he sent Adam out to cultivate the ground from which he had been made." All right. So Adam committed a sin. All right, and then he was what?
Tiller of the ground.
He was a tiller of the ground. He was a keeper of the garden. Yes. But he sinned, and then he had to till. He was banished and had to till the ground. Okay. So this is kind of alluding to Cain. Okay. All right.
You're gonna get to it. I'm sitting over here with a big old puzzle on my face because again, they're with God, which is even better than the New Testament when Jesus is walking around.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 4 of you, and the Creator's right there with you the whole time. Talking about a good Bible study, God is there. So how in the world could the turn out evil and kill his brother? You would just think that they'd see that coming, and they'd, try to bring him around. I'm just trying to figure out how he just got so sinful that he's killing his brother, and now they go, he's not even a child of God anymore.
So
assuming he's a teenager.
Well, think about this, okay? Because there's no difference. You have parents who rear up kids in a good way, but they just go off to the left, right?
Right.
So it's no difference.
This is the Creator of the universe.
Well, let's say this again. What I just said. I said a parent and a kid, right? Yah is our parent, and we still are going off to the left. He is the creator. He can breathe, and we can be gone.
And I assume he's telling that too. Again, if you're God,
but you're gonna see we're gonna see why. It's just we'll see why, because Adam had to commit a sin, right? But to be banished, he had to commit a sin, right? All right. So we're going to verse 3. We're going to read verse 3, 4, and 5 now. Okay. King James Version. Okay. Verse 3. And it says, "And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground and offered unto YAHUAH." Verse 4, and it says, "And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Yahuwah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Verse 5, it says, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. All right, let's look at Genesis 4 and 3. Okay, first we're going to look at the word fruit. Okay, look at the word fruit. That's H6529. H6529. All right, pari. All right, pari. Okay, fruit, literally and figuratively. Dough. Okay, first, fruit, fruitful, reward. Okay, all right. So fruit not only means like you can have a fruit, okay, then you have dough. So dough also means food. Just like when they say meat, meat doesn't actually just strictly mean meat, animal meat. Meat is also food in the Bible, okay? All right. So when they say fruit, they're talking about the substance of eating something, okay, or um, um, part of the first of something, but also the reward, your work, and then the fruit of your work. Okay. All right. But we're going to go in there deeper to H6509. All right. Para. Okay. All right. To bear fruit. Okay. That's bearing the fruit. Okay. All right. Literally or figuratively. Bear, bring forth fruit. Be calls, be calls to be, make, fruitful, grow, increase. Okay. All right. So para. All right. So we know again, fruit is the product of something, or yeah, the product of something, or actually actual food. Okay. All right. Or being fruitful. Okay. The increase. All right. Now, first thing I thought about was, okay, they're giving offerings. Okay. Do we believe this is the first time they gave an offering to Yahuwah?
They didn't have to do, or did they? Did they have to do it after
We,
God created the earth, like the seventh day? You know, they worship.
we,
Did they give anything up then?
we'll find out here in just a second. So, my assumption, this wasn't the first time, because we already said they already did the sacrifice for the clothes that he gave. That was the first sacrifice, right? Okay. So we know Cain and Abel, they said when they grew up, this is not the first time they did an offering to him. Okay. Okay. And like I said, the question was, do we believe this is Cain's first time bringing an offering to Yah? All right. Um, and when I asked that, okay, it says, that verse says, when it was time. Okay. When it was time. All right. That was in the New Living Translation. And in the King James, it says, in process of time. What does that mean? Okay. When it was time and when it was in the process of time. Okay. So um, it says in process of time, and it says at the end of the day, either at the end of the year or of the week. Okay. And it says on the Sabbath. Okay. And this just don't mean the Sabbath, um, the weekly Sabbath. Okay. All right. I'm going to read one of these. So actually, we'll read both of these real quick. But after a while, the brook dried up, for there was no rainfall anywhere in the land. This was when Elijah had prayed for it to not rain for, was it 3 years? Okay. And then this is given the idea that when they're talking about fruit or in the process of, that means you go through time before you have fruit. Okay. So that's what that's alluding to. Let's see what Numbers says. And it says, I also give you the harvest gift brought by the people as offerings to Yahuwah, the best of the olive oil, new wine, and grains. Okay. So in the process of time, saying that the process of time went by and now it is time to do what? Give an offering. Whether it in the Bible it says, when you grow your first fruit tree or whatever, you have to wait 4 years, I believe, before you take anything. You don't take anything off that fruit for yourself, off that tree for yourself. The 5th year you give to Yahuwah, and then the 6th year, that's when, I believe, I may saying those numbers wrong. It could be 7 altogether. You know what I mean? That's biblical. That's biblical. Yep.
Does it say what you're supposed to do with the fruit? Let it fall to the ground?
Yes. Yep.
I always thought that because it says he gave his firstborn his best sheep. It says he gave. It
Yeah.
doesn't say he gave it.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay.
Okay.
The Lord didn't like his offering.
Okay. So again, we know that this is not their first time. Okay. And when you're talking about giving an offering, and right now, Cain gave a fruit offering, while Abel gave a blood offering. Okay. So that describes one of the feasts that Yah wants us to keep. Okay. So we're going to Leviticus 23, 9 through 14. Okay. Leviticus 23, 9 through 14. All right. This is the Feast of First Fruits. Okay. This actually happened not too long ago, a few weeks ago.
In your world?
Yes. Yep. All right. It says, then Yahuwah said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Yasharal. When you enter into the land I am giving you, and you harvest its first crops, bring the priest a bundle of grain from the first cutting of your grain harvest. Okay. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest will lift it up before Yahuwah, so it may be accepted on your behalf. On the same day, you must sacrifice a 1-year-old male lamb with no defects as a burnt offering to Yahuwah. With it, you must present grain offering consisting of 4 quarts of choice flour moistened with olive oil. It will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to Yahuwah. You must also offer 1 quart of wine and a liquid offering. Do not eat any bread or roast grain or fresh kernels on the day until you bring this offering to your Elohim. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. Okay, real quick, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to read that last verse one more time. Okay. In King James, and it says, and ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto Elohim. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all of your dwellings. Okay. And dwellings is not just a place. Dwelling means time. Okay, so also if we look here, I clicked on dwellings. It's mashab. Okay, and it says a seat, figuratively a site, abstractly a session, by extension an abode, the place or the time. Okay, so that's very important. The place or the time. So all your generations, place and time by implication. Okay, population. All right. So that's what he says here, observed from generation to generation wherever you live. Okay, so that's important to know. All right. So when we read about first fruits, he said give a grain offering. Okay. And then he said give the 1 year lamb offering. Okay. All right. Remember the word accepted. Okay. So again, he accepted. Okay. And he said earlier when we was in Genesis, okay, he said he accepted Abel's, okay, or respected Abel's. He said accepted in the New Living Translation, okay, and he said respect in the King James, okay. All right, so we're going back to Genesis 4 and 3, I believe, okay. So this is alluding to the first fruits. Okay, so they're given a first fruits offering. Okay, grain and a lamb. All right, this is before what everybody believed because the other books are demonized. It does explain that these offerings was given before the Ten Commandments. Ten Commandments is another 2,000 years, I believe. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't want to lie. It comes way later. Okay. All right. All right. Now we're going to look into the reference that they gave. Where we at? For fruit. Verse 3. I'm going to read Numbers 18 and 12. It says, I also give you the harvest gift brought by the people as offerings to Elohim, the best, which we did read this one already, the best of the olive oil, new wine, and grain. Okay, Leviticus. This goes into the first fruits again, and I am going to read this because it's just good to hear. Okay, and it says, when you present grain as an offering to Yahuwah, the offering must consist of choice flour. You are to pour olive oil on it, sprinkle it with frankincense, and bring it to Aaron and Aaron's sons, the priests. The priests will scoop out a handful of the flour moist with oil together with all the frankincense and burn this representative portion on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to Yahuwah. The rest of the grain offering will then be given to Aaron and his sons. This offering will be considered the most kadash or most holy part of special gifts presented to Yahuwah. So the part that they scooped up, okay, is the special gift presented to Elohim. So not the whole thing is scooped up. That's the special. That's the kadash. That's the holy, okay, gift to Yahuwah. So they had this whole heap that they bring to the priests, and the handful that the priests get, they burn that on the altar. Okay, that's the gift. The rest of it goes to all the priests. Okay, so the tithing and all of that, that's really where the tithing came from. Because if we look fast forward into where the tribes, where you had all your tribes living in the wilderness, and even when they got into the promised land. Okay, the all the tribes got land except the Levites. Okay, they lived amongst each tribe. They didn't get a portion of land. So everything that everything that all the tribes brought in for the offerings, okay, the leftovers or what was scooped out or the leftovers of the lambs and all of that, they ate because they wasn't given, okay, they wasn't giving land. Okay, so they lived off of the rest of the offerings. Okay, so that is the 10th. Okay, so they bring in their first fruits. Okay, and that's the offerings that they get to eat. So that is what the first 10th offering actually comes from. All right. All right. What did I stop off at? Verse 3. Okay, and it says, the rest of the offering, the rest of the grain offering then is given to Aaron and his sons. This offering will be considered a most Kadash part, a holy part of the special gift presented to Elohim or to Yahuwah. If your offering is a grain offering baked in an oven, it must be made of choice flour, but without any yeast. It may be presented in the form of thin cakes mixed with olive oil or wafers spread with olive oil. If your grain offering is cooked on a griddle, it must be made with choice flour mixed with olive oil, but without any yeast. Break it in pieces and pour olive oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your grain offering is prepared in a pan, it must be made of choice flour and olive oil. No matter how a grain offering for Yahuwah has been prepared, bring it to the priest, who will present it at the altar. The priest will take a representative portion of the grain offering and burn it on the altar, and it is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to Yahuwah. The rest of the grain offering will be given to Aaron and his sons as their food. This offering will be considered the most Kadash part of the special gift presented to Yahuwah. Do not use yeast in preparing any of the grain offering you present to Yahuwah, because no yeast or honey may be burnt as a special gift presented to Yahuwah. Okay?
What's the deal with yeast? Why didn't they not want yeast in it?
It is, yes, it is. It is biblical. That's why they're saying it.
Does it say why? What it was, they didn't like that yeast.
So, well, what it does represent sin, but not. That's not the reason why. The reason, yes. So they had to quickly leave Egypt. So when Yah did the last plague for Egypt, he told them to prepare the Passover, okay, or the Passah, okay. They had to cook this lamb and they had to cook all this food, okay. And he said, "Be ready." So they had to do this feast, okay. They had to stay inside because the angel of death came through, but they had to eat this lamb, okay, and eat the bread or cook all this bread. So that's why it's called the preparation, the festival, the preparation of the Passover. So they had to prep all this stuff because they had to leave in haste. Okay, so they had to leave in haste, so they couldn't let the yeast. Okay, they didn't have time for the yeast to actually to develop or whatever. So they had to leave before that process actually happened. So they ate whatever they had. Okay, so they do that.
They just continue to do it.
Yes, because it's in remembrance. Yes.
We gotta leave in a hurry.
Yes. Yep. It's to remember. Yep. And this is, now I want y'all to remember this because we're not going to be able to get to this until next week. Okay. This is very important. All right. The question I want y'all to think about, all right, is I say, what does the first fruit represent? Okay, just think about that. What is the first fruit? Because it represents more than just giving an offering, okay, to Yah. Yes, it's about giving an offering to Yah, but why? It's telling us something. Okay, so keep that in your mind. We'll find out about that when we read Genesis 4 and 13. Okay, all right. Verse 4. All right. So again, verse 3, we recognize that they're doing the first fruits, okay, which would be the first fruit, the Sabbath, or closing out, okay. It was the first fruits here, okay. So it was something that they did, yearly, or when they got the first fruits of, but specifically this was the first fruits. All right, verse 4. All right, King James Version. And Abel, he also brought of the firstling of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Yahuwah had respected unto Abel and to his offering. Okay. All right. So he says right here,
I'm assuming God's not eating. This has nothing to do with God. God's not eating it.
it's an aroma, but also eating. So he has these offerings. It's the fellowship time. So these offerings, like the priests eat that food, they're eating. That's fellowshipping. That's what he wants with us. It's fellowship. Okay, so we give an offering and we're sitting and eating with him. So anytime you read in the Bible and they give an offering and they sit, especially with Abraham, they really expound on that. That is an offering, which is a fellowship. He wants to sit with us. He wants to be with us. Okay. All right. So it says Abel brought the firstlings. Okay. All right. Abel brought the firstlings. So first, we're going to look at what firstlings mean. Okay. That's H1062. We're going to click on that. Okay. I'm at Bakura. Bakura. All right. And it says firstling of man. So the firstborn. Okay. Firstling of man or beast. Abstractly, primogeniture. Okay. Birthright. Firstborn. Firstbornling. Okay. We're going to go deeper into it. All right. Bakur. All right. This means firstborn. Okay. Hence, chief, eldest, son, firstborn, firstbornling. Okay. So it's describing, when it says chief, the patriarch. Okay. All right. We're going to go a little bit deeper. Okay. Bakar. Okay. Bakar. Properly, the burst of the womb. The first one who comes out of the womb. Okay. That is causatively bear or make early fruit of women or trees. Okay. So that goes in with also with fruits. Okay. All right. And it says also as denominatively from, and before I go into it deeper, it says to give the birthright, make firstborn, be firstling, bring forth first child, new birth. Okay, I'm gonna go deeper into it. Bakor, okay, Baku, Kur, okay, and it says here the first fruit, okay, the first fruits. All right, so firstling, we know it's the first fruits, and we read in the first fruit of the directions, he said a small portion was the best. Okay, and he said, give the lamb of the first year, the best, no blemish. Okay, so we know Abel gave the best. All right, so the best. All right, of the crop. Okay, first fruit, ripe, okay, hasty fruit. All right. All right. And we're going to go to that first reference there, okay, for firstling. They did some references. All right. And I want to go to Peter first. And it says, it is the precious blood of Mashiach, the sinless, spotless Lamb of Elohim. He chose him as your ransom long before the world began. But now, in these last days, he has been revealed for your sake. So Yahusha, or the Messiah, was the firstling. Before the world began, he was here, right? Okay, and he waited till this time for his time, okay, to be offered up. So it was the plan from the very beginning. He is the first fruit. All right. All right, I'm gonna read a few more. Hebrews 9:22. In fact, according to the law of Moses, nearly everything was purified with blood, for without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Okay. All right. So talking about the sacrifice, firstling, the blood of the firstling, just saying the importance of it. Okay. I'm going to read another. Let's go to Revelations 13 and 8. And all the people who belong to this world worshiping the beast, they are ones whose names were not written in the book of life that belongs to the Lamb who was slaughtered before the world was began. Okay, so again, they're talking about the people who worship the beast, but also they're referring to the people who are actually written in the book belong to the Lamb. Okay, so they're talking about the Lamb as well. Okay, the Lamb who was slaughtered before the world was made. Okay, all right. So when we looked at that, so we know that the firstling is the best. Okay, it's the first fruit. Okay, bara. All right, first fruit. Okay, and then also it says the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. Okay, the fat thereof is the best part of the lamb. Okay, and we're going to look at fat. We're going to go into it real quick and look at fat. Fat is H2459. H2459. Okay. Kalab. Okay. Kalab. Okay. It says from an unused root meaning to be fat. Okay. Fat, whether literally or figuratively, hence the richest or choice part. Okay. They use that word choice a lot. Choice part. Okay. You know. And hey, and that's the truth. So it says best, fat, fatness, finest, grease, and marrow. Okay. I looked it up. Okay. It actually says in here, I just can't remember what word it was. But the best part of the lamb is the gut, where we're not supposed to ever eat the fat of any animal. And the fat that he's talking about is the fat that's around the organs. So in the gut, we're not supposed to eat that. We're not supposed to eat that or blood. Yes, it belongs to Yahuwah. Yep. I'm gonna try to find where that is. It probably is in the reference. Okay. Leviticus 3:16 through 17. I believe it's going to be in this one. Leviticus 3. Okay, I'm going to click on that. Leviticus, the fat. Okay, yeah, the fat. Okay, Leviticus 3:16 and 7. I'm sorry. And the priests will burn them on the altar. It is a special gift of food, a pleasing aroma to Yahuwah. All the fat belong to Yahuwah. You must never eat any fat or blood. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. Okay? From generation to generation wherever you live. Okay? Meaning time and place, from generation to generation. Okay? So we're not supposed to eat the fat. Okay? I gotta find that word. All right. I will have to find it and bring it back up to you. Okay. So far what we know, Abel gave the best. Okay. All right. Abel gave the best, and it says he was accepted. Okay. Um, Again, after that, we're gonna read, and it says, and Yahuwah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Okay. We're going to look up what respect, well, we know what respect means. Okay. All right. Um, and again, I'm just going to read a few of them. It says, sha'ah is the Hebrew word. Let's say to gaze at or about, compassionate, inspect, really surprised. Okay, so Yahuwah was surprised. Again, it says as I go further, okay, and it says bewildered, bewildered. The part dimmed, be dismayed, okay. Regard, have respect, okay. So, so he was surprised. He was bewildered at this offering, okay. So yes, so he respected it. All right. So I asked this question: how did Abel know his offering was accepted? Okay, anybody remember any of the stories in the Bible to kind of allude to him knowing?
Normally, fire would come down and consume.
Yes. So here's some of the references. Okay, Genesis 15, verse 17. After the sun went down, okay, this is Abraham, okay, this is cutting the first covenant with Abraham. And it says, after the sun went down and darkness fell, Abram saw a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch pass between the halves, because he halved a few animals, okay, halves of the carcasses. Okay, so this was the first covenant that So Abraham was told to get a few animals and cut them in half, and then he had fell asleep, I believe, and he woke up and he saw this. He saw this fire pot and flaming torch passing through. Okay, so he was putting fire. Yah was putting this offering to fire. Okay, all right. Leviticus 9:24. Okay, and it says, fire blazed forth from Yahuwah's presence and consumed the burnt offering and the fat of the offering. When the people saw this, they shouted with joy and fell face down on the ground. So that's showing he accepted that offering. Okay, all right.
The again sending down fire and it being consumed. That stuff. I mean, it's not having a day.
Okay, so the Lord knows everything ahead of time.
Mhm.
So he's telling from generation to generation, knowing that this is not going to happen.
This is good questions. We are going to get. Go ahead.
You know, so part of it was the priest did this. All of it, at a certain point, the priests were involved. It wasn't just, okay, Lord, I have this group of priests.
Yes.
You know, you don't just.
Yes, it represented something that we're supposed to do today, and it's not the exact same, but it is the same, or it's representing.
Okay, but if it's not the same, so where are the instructions? How do you know how to do it? They were given instructions. So do you just decide what you want to do?
We're given instructions too. We're reading it.
But again, if you were given instructions, then God should get it too. And since He doesn't
Yes.
pick it up, then you
So-
must be doing something wrong, right?
So, no. So the thing is in the Bible, he does say there's a time of the Gentiles. Okay. Okay. And he did say also, he said, you know, for those who do not see and yet believe, because he knew it was a time where it's going to be darkness, the time of the Gentiles, right? Those is the people he gonna love. So he knows this. So that means study to show thyself approved, so we know, because this is our instructions. Okay.
You can't do all of it. There is no.
We'll get to what that means. So it's not. We'll get actually that right there. We'll actually get to that next week, because I wanted to do the whole thing, but we're not going to be able to get to that whole thing. But this is explaining, this is leading up and giving us the understanding, okay, of what actually happened. Okay. So that's good afternoon. So last week's Bible study, I forgot to charge the microphone. So what I will do this coming Wednesday, I will go over the remaining 4 verses that was not recorded with the audio, and then continue on into the planned out verses that I'm supposed to do this coming Wednesday. So we'll do that, and I hope y'all enjoying these Wednesday night Bible studies, and we'll see y'all Wednesday. Later.